This story is about James Holmes, who killed 12 people and injured 70 others at a Century 16 movie theater in Aurora, Colorado on July 20th, 2012. If you like hearing stories about people who suck, then like and subscribe. James Holmes was born on December 13th, 1987 in San Diego, California. His father, Robert Holmes, is a mathematician and scientist with degrees from Stanford University, UCLA, and UC Berkeley. His mother, Arlene Holmes, is a registered nurse. He has one sister. Holmes was raised in Oak Hills, a community in Monterey County near Castroville, California, where he attended elementary school. At 11 years old, Holmes suffered from mental health problems in middle school and attempted suicide. At 12 years old, Holmes moved back to San Diego. He eventually went to Westview High School, where he played soccer and ran cross country in high school. While in high school, Holmes worked as an intern at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies, where he was assigned to write computer code for an experiment. Holmes, who was described by his supervisor as stubborn, uncommunicative, and socially inept, presented his project to the other interns at the end of the internship, but never completed it. According to Holmes, during his childhood, he was frightened of what he called nail ghosts that would hammer on the walls at night. Holmes saw a social worker who sent him to a psychiatrist who diagnosed him with depression and said he was obsessed with killing for over a decade. Holmes graduated from high school in 2006 and completed a bachelor's degree at University of California, Riverside in 2010. He decided to pursue a graduate degree in neuroscience at the University of Colorado and moved to Aurora. In Aurora, Holmes lived in a one-bedroom apartment with other students involved in health studies. In a rental application for an apartment, he described himself as quiet and easygoing. In an online dating profile, Holmes identified himself as an agnostic. He had an account on the dating site Match.com and a profile on Adult Friend Finder. Holmes paid for hookers and left reviews for their services on an online message board. While in grad school, Holmes was employed at a pill and capsule coating factory in San Diego. One of his co-workers said that Holmes was unsociable and once acted strangely at a laboratory workstation by staring at a blank wall and not verbally responding, only making a quick glance and smirking when his co-worker asked if he was okay. Holmes would see shadows and flickers at the corners of his eyes, which would fight each other with firearms and other weapons. In 2011, Holmes began dating a fellow student in his biology class. She said that Holmes often made inappropriate jokes that made other people feel uncomfortable and had expressed his desire to kill people. She eventually broke up with him and told him to seek professional help. In 2012, Holmes' academic performance declined and he started failing his classes. Eventually, he dropped out of school. At the time of his arrest, he listed his occupation as laborer. His psychiatrist expressed concerns about his social phobia and psychotic-level thinking and believed he may have had schizoid personality disorder. She listed specific concerns, such as his long-standing fantasies about killing as many people as possible. Holmes purchased a Glock 22 in Aurora. 6 days later, on May 28th, he bought a Remington 870 Express Tactical Shotgun in Denver. On June 7th, he bought a Smith & Wesson M&P 15 rifle. All three of these weapons were bought legally, and background checks were performed. In the 4 months prior to the shooting, Holmes also bought 3,000 rounds of ammunition for the pistol, 3,000 rounds for the M&P 15, and 350 shells for the shotgun over the internet. He placed an order for a Black Hawk Urban Assault Vest, 2 magazine holders, and a knife at an online retailer. He also purchased spike strips, which he later admitted he planned to use in case police would shoot at or follow him in a car chase. Less than a month before the shooting, Holmes emailed an application to join a gun club in Byers, Colorado. The owner called him several times throughout the following days to invite him to a mandatory orientation, but could only reach his answering machine. Holmes left the gun club owner one voicemail in reply. The message was described as bizarre, freaky, guttural, spoken with a deep voice, incoherent and rambling. Holmes neither appeared at the gun range nor called back. Hours before the shooting started, Holmes mailed a notebook to his psychiatrist. The notebook detailed his thoughts and plans during the weeks preceding the shooting. Immediately prior to the shooting, Holmes called a crisis hotline for mental health with the hopes that someone would talk him out of committing the massacre at the last minute. However, the call was disconnected after 9 seconds. The shooting occurred in Theater 9 at the Century 16 multiplex located in the town center at Aurora Shopping Mall. Holmes bought a ticket for The Dark Knight Rises, entered the theater, and sat in the front row. About 20 minutes into the film, he left the theater through the emergency exit while propping it open. there were about 400 people inside the theater. Holmes went to his car, changed into protective clothing, and retrieved his guns. About 30 minutes into the movie, he re-entered the theater through the exit door. Holmes was dressed in black and wore a gas mask, a load-bearing vest, a ballistic helmet, bullet-resistant leggings, a bullet-resistant throat protector, a groin protector, and tactical gloves. He was listening to techno music through a set of headphones so that he could not hear anything from the people in the theater. Initially, few in the audience considered Holmes to be a threat. Some witnesses thought he was wearing a costume, like other audience members who had dressed up for the screening. Some believed he was playing a prank, while others thought he was part of a special effects setup for the film's premiere, or a publicity stunt by the studio or theater management. Holmes threw one canister towards the left side of the theater, emitting a gas or smoke that partially obscured the audience members' vision, made their throats and skin itch, and caused eye irritation. He fired the shotgun 6 times at the audience. He also fired the rifle 65 times, which eventually malfunctioned. Finally, he fired the Glock 5 times. A bullet passed through the wall and hit 3 people in adjacent theater 8. 12 people were killed, and 70 were injured. The police arrested Holmes behind the cinema, next to his car, without resistance. Because of his tactical clothing, Holmes was at first mistaken for another police officer. He was calm and disconnected during his arrest. When apprehended, Holmes told the police that he had booby-trapped his apartment with explosive devices. Police evacuated 5 buildings surrounding his Aurora residence and disarmed an explosive device that was wired to the apartment's front door. They used a remote-controlled robot to enter and disable other explosives. The apartment held more than 30 homemade grenades wired to a control box in the kitchen and filled with at least 30 gallons of gasoline. His lawyers offered a guilty plea in exchange for prosecutors not seeking the death penalty. The prosecution announced it had declined the offer because the DA was seeking the death penalty. Holmes was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole after the jury failed to reach a unanimous decision over sentencing him to death. Holmes was sentenced to 12 life imprisonment sentences without parole and a maximum of 3,318 additional years on attempted murder and explosives possession convictions. The judge said that Holmes should not set foot in society ever again and that he deserves no sympathy. That's the end of the video. If you like the video, then like and subscribe. It only takes a couple of seconds and it would really help me out. Feel free to check out the other videos on my channel. Leave a comment below if you think he should have gotten the death penalty.